Hello and welcome. My name is Rosella Garcia, and I'm the Senior Director of Alumni Relations at Teachers College. Thank you so much for joining us for another virtual event sponsored by Alumni Relations. This is just one of the many ways you can stay engaged with your TC family. I'd like to quickly remind you of a few more ways you can maintain a meaningful connection with Teachers College. Recruit TC's talented students and alumni through TC Next. Refer brilliant prospective students to the college. Show your pride by including Teachers College in all of your professional credentials. Share your expertise by volunteering to speak at TC events or joining one of our Alumni Association committees. And when the time is right for you, support TC and our community financially by donating to the TC Fund. We're especially grateful for the TC alumni who share their knowledge and know-how through their insightful presentations and talks like the one we're about to hear, for all of the TC community to come together and learn as one. I'm so excited to introduce today's featured speakers, two of my favorite people, distinguished alumna Fanshen Cox and Associate Professor of English Education and alumna Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz. Today, they're going to be discussing the power in words, the importance of language in honoring individuals and communities. Fanshen is an award-winning actor, producer, and educator who has recently completed 7 years of touring her one-woman show, One Drop of Love. She is a producer and development exec at Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's Pearl Street Films and a co-host of the podcast Sista Brunch. She served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Cape Verde, West Africa, and is also a co-author of The Inclusion Rider, which was first announced at the 2018 Oscars Awards by fellow actor Frances McDormand. Dr. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz is an award-winning associate professor at Teachers College. Her research focuses on racial literacy in teacher education, Black girl literacies, and Black and Latinx male high school students. A sought-after speaker on issues of race, culturally responsive pedagogy, and diversity, Yolanda works with K-12 and higher education school communities to increase their racial literacy, knowledge, and move toward more equitable and school experiences for their Black and Latinx students. Yolanda appeared in Spike Lee's Two Fists Up, We Gonna Be All Right, a documentary about the Black Lives Matter movement, and the campus protests at Mizzou. With Dr. Deetra Price Dennis, she is co-authoring a book, Advancing Racial Literacies in Teacher Education Toward Activism for Equity in Digital Spaces, which will be published in May. And her first full-length collection of poetry, Love from the Vortex and Other Poems, was published last March. In today's discussion, Fanshen and Yolanda will spend time talking about how truth, justice, and love can help to advance racial literacy. They will be taking questions from the audience during the latter part of the event, so please drop your questions in the Q&A box below. We'll be utilizing the chat feature during today's event, which is located at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any technical issues, please feel free to let us know there. And without further ado, please welcome Fanshen and Yolanda.
Thank you so much, Bella. And thank you, Yolanda. I am so gifted to be able to be with you again after we had an amazing talk. I had already been following your work and posted a video that you had made on our One Drop of Love website. And so once Rosella and Elisa reached out and asked if we would be willing to work together, I was like, yes, and forever.
Yes, so, forever.
I'm so grateful to you. And welcome everyone who's on here listening to us. I am so proud to be an alumni of Teachers College. And I kind of got there, I feel like accidentally, but on purpose, as I think many of us did. And so just being able to continue to stay in community with you all has been so wonderful and important for me throughout my career that has taken me in a lot of different places. Rosella mentioned truth, justice, love. So I'll just briefly talk about what I mean by that and then really, I am here to celebrate Yolanda's important work
Mhm.
especially in Love from the Vortex, because I think that's a great way to kind of give us a centralized theme to what we'll be talking about today. So when I talk about truth, justice, and love, especially in storytelling, so I do a lot of work around nurturing others and also telling my own stories. And so I have a workshop called Narrative as Resistance. And it's really about how we tell stories with an impact. And I believe that all stories can have an impact, and I actually think they should have an impact. And so I have this mantra of truth, justice, and love to really remind me and encourage others to think about all the time what impact our stories have. And so what I mean when I say truth is the non-dominant narrative. So what are those truths that haven't been told yet? What are the stories, the historical events that we have been given a very limited understanding of? And where are the voices that are missing? And so especially in my work at Pearl Street Films, I'm constantly kind of combing the country and other countries to find storytellers who are telling stories that we haven't heard yet. And so that's what I mean when I say truth. And when we tell that full truth, that leads us to understanding where our efforts towards justice should be put. And so a lot of times I think we pursue justice without having acknowledged the full truths or told the full truths, and that leaves people out. And so we need to start with that truth or do them in conjunction so that we really know where our pursuits should take us towards justice. And finally, love. And everybody always can't wait till I get to the end of the workshop so I can talk about love. And my point is, guess what? Through telling the truth and through pursuing justice based on that truth, that is what love looks like. So it is not just hugs, and it is not just me telling you how much I love you at TC, but if you don't see me actively working constantly towards telling non-dominant narratives and pursuing justice based on those narratives, I welcome you to question my commitment to love. So I want to turn this over now to Yolanda and talk about Love from the Vortex, because what she does in this book is model for us truth telling on a deeply personal level. And I have to admit that I've shied away from that a little bit. I like to go around and tell folks, we got to tell the truth about the systems. We got to tell the truth about history. But telling the truth on our personal level is the best way to model how important it is to tell the truth. And that's what she's done in this beautiful book. So Yolanda, will you share about how you came to be so brave to, to tell the poems in this book?
Yes, but if I may, Fanshen, can I just say thank you to Rosella, to Elisa, to Teachers College. I am proud to be an alum. I am proud to be a faculty member at Teachers College. I am proud to be sitting here with you in this moment in time. And so I just want to say thank you all the way around to everyone. I also want to tell you how inspired I just was in something that you said. First of all, I'm inspired by your work, and I'm hoping that we can talk about how truth, justice, and love manifest in the things that you're doing with Sister Brunch, with the impact that you are having in Hollywood, which is a big beast to take on. It's like how we're trying to take on the beast of higher ed and K through 12. Hollywood is its own beast that it has to reckon with history in a truthful way. But when you talked about love, so even though you ended on that, I'm glad we're starting with it, because Bell Hooks said that the beginning of truth is love.
Yes.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said that love without justice and power is anemic. And so I'm so grateful that you added love to your mantra, because it gives folks the opportunity right? To really dig into love beyond eros, beyond some of the ways, agape, perhaps the way that some of the Greeks have asked us to think about it, but to think about it very personally, and to also think about it very focused on equity, equality, and social justice.
Yes.
And so, how did I get to be so brave? You know, this was really a journey to self-love, love from the Vortex. And I also call it my ultimate liberation project. And so when I realized I wasn't loving myself enough vis-a-vis these relationships that I've had, I knew that I had to be on that journey for self-love. I knew that nothing would change. I love my profession. I love the work that I do. I love teaching. I see teaching as a loving and spiritual act, but I was not practicing that in my own life. And so these poems were a way of, honestly, they wrote themselves because I've always used poetry as a way to figure out what's happening in my life. It is the ultimate truth telling for me. It allows me to make sense of what's happening. It allows me to even create or freedom dream another world. So in this case, I had to be honest because who am I going to hide from? If I'm not going to be honest with myself, I really don't know, Fanshen, how to encourage teachers and beginning teachers to be honest. So I try to never ask my students to do things that I do not do. So if I ask them to engage in practicing humility, let me be a model of humility. If I ask them to love students, let me love them first. And so to just quickly answer your question, this is the only way out for me to operate in truth. And since I'm talking about love and self-love, it was the only way for me to be courageous and to tell my truth.
So I'll just mention for those of you who haven't read it yet, and you should, it is, Yolanda shares these very powerful and moving moments of exes, basically of kind of relationships that have ended. And it helped me think about, I got divorced last September, and I think the way that I shared it with the world was just by dropping my married last name. And then I just kept moving on. Even I think with TC, I was like, oh, by the way, now my name is back to this. And it really helped me think about how to honor myself within those relationships. And then just as you said, that is then modeling, well, how do we do that in the classroom? It's certainly modeling, how do I do that in rooms in Hollywood where there's still this power dynamic that, you know, a lot of us are kind of trying to push down and push back on, but how do we bring our truths and our vulnerabilities into that? I really thought about how important it is just to start from that place. Even getting used to saying the word divorced.
Yes, yes.
Challenge, right? But it's liberating. You use the word freedom dreaming.
Okay. Yeah, that's a nod actually to Dr. Robin D.G. Kelly and also Dr. Bettina Love.
Okay.
And actually, some people may not know this, but this semester I'm teaching a Black Lives Matter class, and it has been incredible. It's certainly Black students, students of color from across the college, but also students who are not Black that are taking up the question, what does the movement mean to you? Why should Black lives matter to you? And so actually we had Dr. Bettina Love as a guest speaker 2 weeks ago. And Robin.
Can we talk about how I didn't get like an invite to just be a fly on the wall?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. And we also had an artist last week too, one of the original dancers in The Lion King, Aubrey Lynch, who was responsible for taking The Lion King to 12 countries. And he's now the creative chief director, creative officer of the Harlem School of the Arts. So that's a mouthful, but I will tell you that freedom dreaming, as Robin Kelly has offered and Bettina Love has offered, is giving us the courage to create a world that we've not yet seen. And in part, this is what I'm asking teachers to do. I know that we are mired in these times, the summer that was on fire, racism, economic downsliding. but how can we together collectively dream the world that we know we each deserve, everyone deserves? That's going to take something, deep within the imagination. And so as Robin talks about movement and ancestors and those who had the ability to freedom dream beyond what their current situations are, Bettina also takes that up. And what she's saying is, in her ideas of abolitionist teaching, that as we tear down, we also need to build up. And so we have to be able to dream what kind of loving, equitable world we all deserve.
I love that. And I especially love it in terms of what I spoke to around the truth telling being the non-dominant narrative, and that letting us know what to focus on, because I feel like we have our, certainly during Black History Month, we tend to rehash many of the same names that are all important to us without question. But it really is also about like, what about those folks, let's say intersectionally,
Right.
P. Johnson, right? Queer Black folks who we haven't necessarily traditionally celebrated during these times. And that's where we know, that's where we need to kind of push for that freedom dreaming is, towards those folks who have not been celebrated broadly, right? Celebrated throughout the world.
Fanshen, I'm getting chills. Let me tell you why. Have you looked at my syllabus? Because I will invite you to class tonight. Tonight, my doctoral student and I, Shamar, he's the TA, we are talking about freedom dreaming, Black joy, and we've invited 2 Black women of trans experience who are talking about Black trans women as having the ability to freedom dream, to talk about Black futurity. And they will be coming into our class tonight. So I will absolutely, I don't know if you can make it. I know your work is busy.
I will clear my schedule.
But this is what I mean. And when we talk about the power of words, the words that I'm connecting with you right now, I'm having a visceral reaction, a very powerful reaction. And I'm thinking a lot about Toni Morrison. Her birthday was last week. I'm thinking what she told us about language and the power of language. And I want to use that to actually ask you a question, if I may, because I've been following your work, not just your beautiful play from years ago, but this work that you're doing called Sister Brunch, which is a podcast, and also using words of power to try to shift this initiative that you're doing in Hollywood. And so I would like to ask you, have you seen your words and the work that you're doing shifting, having effect on what you hope to bring forward in Hollywood, which is truth, justice, and love?
Well, I can certainly say that I am part of a collective of people who have been doing this work for years and years, far, before I got here. Oh, I promised I was turning everything off. Long before I got here. And then also in the best of ways, folks who are coming from outside of the industry, who are coming in and saying, we're going to disrupt this. I'm thinking that we just actually, for Sister Brunch, we just released an episode with Monifa Bendele, who's the COO of Time's Up. And she comes out of the movement for Black Lives. She comes out of Moms Rising. So she comes out of this grassroots, fully opposite of Hollywood experience. And one of the words she used on our episode with her is disruptor. Yeah. And I got real excited because I thought, oh, somebody's introducing the term and the concept of disruption into Hollywood. That's great, because now I know I can use that.
That's right.
We plant these seeds from outside of the industry so that the industry has to start responding and can't say, well, I don't know what that means, because now you know what disruptor means, because Time's Up is using that actively. And I believe it took someone from outside of the industry to do that. Yes, we are seeing changes. Are we satisfied with the pace at which it's
Yeah.
happened? No, but that is certainly where I think the love comes in, because we are witnessing truth telling, and we're witnessing action. And that's been helpful for us to kind of love up on ourselves and
Yes.
say, wake up in the morning and keep doing this. And so Sister Brunch is this powerful example, I think, of sharing those truths from women who otherwise folks just wouldn't know.
Right.
We have a story of Janice Whitehead, who's a film loader. A lot of folks don't even know what a film loader is, let alone a Black woman, a queer Black woman film loader is, what her experiences are like on sets. And so those are the stories that we're saying, let's put these together with the COO of Time's Up. Let's put these all together so we see a more complete picture. And I mentioned on our pre-call this morning, we have a Facebook page called Color Entertainment that lists the kind of the job, the new folks in new positions in Hollywood. So especially for folks of color. And this used to feel like pulling teeth to have one post. We were seeing one post every month, every 2-3 weeks. I go on there and every day there are 4 or 5 posts of people of color being promoted or being given exclusive deals. And so I have to say, knowing that these folks are now, these truth tellers are now going to be in more positions of power. I am, I'm optimistic for sure.
Oh, no, that's beautiful. I really wanted to take a moment to center the work that you're doing and this concept of the writer, and making sure that when films are made, that across the board, from behind the scenes to in front of the scenes, people of color are being considered. And so I just wanted to publicly thank you for that work that you're doing, because sometimes it can feel that, we're doing this work and what is it, like Sisyphus, we're pushing the ball up the hill and it's rolling down. But we have to, as you said, you have to love what you're doing, because if you do not love what you're doing, you can potentially burn out, you can become distracted, and you can just put it to the side. Absolutely. And so I know that that's what keeps me going, my love for truth, for justice, for teachers. I love teachers. I'm grateful to have been one so far, now 29 years and counting. So that love, and the love, whether it's love in the Vortex, the love of the careers that we've chosen, the love for, as my former student, Dr. Jamila Liscott would say, what are you fighting for? What are you fighting against? To be able to find that and to put that energy of love towards it, because love is the answer, in terms of, that's what I believe.
Oh, I'd love to follow up on that a little bit more on where we're going with the inclusion rider. And that's the exciting thing too, is that as people, I think, witness that our goal is love through this action of truth telling and justice seeking. In the best of ways, we get to evolve. So where we thought today we told the truth, tomorrow we realize we've only peeled off another layer, right? And so what I'm thinking of is I have to uplift the name of Kalpana Kodagal, who is our civil rights attorney, who really crafted the language for the inclusion rider, and really is kind of the most integral element to how it lives. And again, I'll mention the importance of the fact that she's outside of Hollywood, that she was able to come in and kind of have this objective view. And she and I, so I want to be clear that the inclusion rider talks about people of color, certainly, also women generally, LGBTQIA community, people with disabilities. And as we crafted it before, we felt confident that we cared enough about these groups that we were going to do them justice within this document. And as we've evolved, we thought, well, that's not right. We actually need the folks in these groups, the folks who identify as, as these things to contribute to this document. And so we worked with respectability.org, an incredible woman named Diana Elizabeth Jordan and Tatiana Lee, who contributed to the wording around people with disabilities, actors and crew with disabilities, and making sure that we're addressing their needs in the inclusion writer. We're also adding language around colorism. And Akosua Lisane, who is also a beautiful educator and just one of my sheroes. We got to connect with Akosua and Zetta Elliott, who's a children's book author, and Cheryl Bedford, who is a line producer in Hollywood and has the largest database of women of color filmmakers called the JTC list. So we got together with them and they contributed to our language around colorism, as well as anything else that they thought we might improve on in the inclusion writer. So we're kind of modeling exactly what we're saying, is that with each new truth, you are only then peeling back more non-dominant narratives that are there. Land acknowledgements is another thing that now we're working with a great organization called Illuminative, and talking about how do we include this? How do we make sure that every set on the first day of production does a land acknowledgement? How do we eventually ask for that to happen at the top of every film you see? There's a land acknowledgement. So yes, our truth telling is never ending. And I think that's why some folks get fragile or bothered with it. And it's hard, but no, we keep going, we keep pushing.
We have to keep pushing. There's two connections I wanted to make. First, I do want to say that I am here on the stolen land of the Wappinger and the Lenni Lenape peoples. Yes. And although there were about 14 First Nations tribes that inhabited Turtle Island, also known as Manhattan, also known as Manhattan, but specifically Harlem, here in the Columbia University campus, I always open up my my school year, my professional development with land acknowledgement. And Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, they have been really doing this for almost 2 or 3 decades of specifically opening up school year with land acknowledgement and celebrations. It would be incredible to see that either at the beginning or the end of every film, to recognize, what land, stolen land we are on, and to talk about truth and reconciliation, to really start engaging in that type of truth telling of who owns what land. So that's one thing I wanted to say. The second thing,
I'll just quickly mention, I'm on the stolen land of the Tongva people. So thank you. And again, here we are making sure we're modeling for it. So thank you for that. And yes, TC, let's do that at the top of every panel.
Absolutely. And for TC, what I would love as I work with institutions of higher learning, seeing that they're developing land acknowledgement statements. And so I think that is the way that TC and all other institutions actually need to go in that direction as we continue to pursue truth and continue to pursue justice, certainly in the act of love for our First Nations brothers and sisters, and love for the truth. So yes, I can't think of the second thing, but I'm sure you'll say something that will make my heart explode and my mind also explode, because that's how it is to be with you every time.
I'll say something about that, which is that I wonder if you would read us Hard Love on page 115.
Wonderful. I definitely want to end with justice, if that's okay. The poem, Just Us, which is a play on justice. But Hard Love, did you say what? You would think I would know the pages.
115.
115. I want to say one quick thing, and thank you for engaging with the book. Again, Love from the Vortex was a project of self-love and liberation. I also want to say that I am forever a researcher. I don't bifurcate my life. My personal and professional are intertwined. And so in doing this work, my researcher hat was on, that I do research with communities and not on them. And so each of the men knew that I was doing this work, and I asked them to choose a pseudonym because, you know, the world is small and Facebook is large and Instagram is large, and it only takes 2 minutes to make one connection to another person. And so each of the men chose their names, so they're aware of the project. And I just really wanted to share that, because as we tell our truths, we don't necessarily have to hurt people to do it, right? People may feel hurt. And as long as we are telling the truth in love, right? I don't know that we can be responsible for how it hits them, but we do not have to purposely pursue truth to hurt others.
Yes.
And I think that particularly with the work that we're doing, it's important to keep that as top of mind. So this section comes from, this poem, Hard Love, comes from the Tyrone section, which is the 6th of 7 chapters in the book. The last chapter is other poems that talks about other things I love, like justice and my South Bronx neighborhood, and other things. But I would really love to just read the epigraph, and then of the title of the chapter is called To Ride or Die. And the epigraph is anonymous. It says, should I smile because you're my friend, or cry because that's all you'll ever be? And each of these epigraphs really, at the time the book went to print, summarize my relationships, my understanding with the folks in the book. Hard love. When I choose to love you, you will know it. In true Libra fashion, my love will come fast, it will come hard, and it will run deep. You will not know what hit you, but as it is a steady love, you will have time to unwrap it. Bit by bit, poco a poco, you will come to know that every poem, text, voice message is a gift that serves as testimony. I pray that you are a worthy witness, that in full presence, you can receive the power of my gift and respond graciously. Thank you for asking me to read that. Because love can be hard sometimes, right? The truth of love, it can be hard.
This is where my work in Hollywood, this poem reflects so much, I think, the line that a lot of us Black folks, women, queer folks have to walk sometimes in service of comfort of the other, unfortunately, or of the dominant narratives, and also often then therefore in our own comfort so that we can survive another day, spiritually, physically. And I love this one because it is about reminding that person from a dominant culture or who has a dominant narrative that this is about love and it's going to be hard. And the only way we can do it, the only way we can confirm that we are actually loving is for it to be hard.
Right, right.
And that's scary. It's scary. It's
For some do welcome. Yep.
Yes, and yes, and for others, very much a welcome. You know, the hard part is either because we're used to it being hard anyway, often, or we've done the therapy or are doing the therapy that helps us to see the hard pieces as necessary. But yeah, I just, I love that one for that as kind of I would like to use it in my workshop and my workshops as a reminder that the goal of all of this is love. As hard as it is, the goal is, and actually, as you quoted Bell Hooks, it is love in the doing of it, even in the challenge of it, it is love.
It's an act of love. And, you know, Fanshen, I want to connect to something else you said, and you said it twice, you talked about this peeling back of layers. And I feel it resonates with this theory that I have been working around called archaeology of self. And in fact, Love
Yeah.
from the Vortex is my artifact from my archaeological dig on love and intimacy. And so this idea of archaeology of self, of really doing a deep excavation, right, as archaeologists do, a deep excavation of our beliefs, of our biases, of some of the stereotypes and the stories that we hold that live deep within. It's important to do that excavation. That is the hard work, because in doing that type of work, there is the fracturing of the self that can happen, because you really have to, I think, look at the different pieces, the different ways in which you were raised, the value systems that you believe in. And in doing this excavation, it quite naturally will require you to look very carefully at the pieces of self. I'm giving a nod to Toni Morrison, the pieces I am. I don't know that we can ever fully understand all of our pieces, but we can try. And so in doing that excavation, there is a fracturing of the self, but there's also this power that comes in trying to understanding the pieces that make who you are, right? And there is, I think, a beauty, right? I think about the craft of kitsuji, the centuries-old Japanese pottery, beautifying pottery, where pottery is broken, and when it's restored, they restore it with precious metals. So yes, it's that same piece of pottery, but you look at it very differently. And so archaeology of the self allows us to do the deep excavation, right? To also rebuild, to be broken open, if you will, and have, be open to other truths and other possibilities and other ways of knowing. So I want to thank you, because when you were talking about the peeling back of layers, that essentially is doing that archaeological dig. And who are we? As partners, as sisters, brothers, uncles, fathers, mothers, what is the archaeological dig? What are those beliefs and biases and stories and stereotypes that we hold about the roles that we play? So it can be very exciting, but I do understand how hard it can be, because it's really asking you to break open and to, in some ways, shift who you are in the moment.
Oh, your analogy of the pottery is making me think a lot about the film industry and the entertainment industry, in terms of, I think a lot of times the fear that we are up against in as we try to push for change is this idea that suddenly everything that's good about film is going to go away. Everything that's ever been good about storytelling is going to go away. And our point is, no, well, first of all, we were the first storytellers, so it's not going away. It's just getting back to
yes, oral tradition. That's right, griots.
Right. But also that we absolutely honor the strength of storytelling in film and TV and streaming, and we honor that, and we are saying that we are bringing new layers to it, and that can only make it stronger. So.
We're stronger together, aren't we?
Yes. Well, I know you talked about, I don't know how we're doing, and we've got so many comments in the chat, and
thank you for that.
So that's amazing, and I know we want to make sure we open this up to everyone. And Yolanda, you mentioned that you want to talk about your justice and just piece.
Yes, I would love to read that. Actually, I had the page, and I'm in the moment. Can I actually read two short poems? I'd like to read.
You can read as many as you want.
Thank you. I'd like to read Spread Love. And if you don't mind, Fanshen, while I'm reading, can you find me the page number for Just Us? And I'll flow right into that. And then I think we can flow into Q&A. Spread Love actually is also part of the Tyrone section. And I want to share it because I think it beautifully depicts the self-love, that sometimes we hold on to things that make us feel great, but ultimately it's not great for us, right? Mm. So again, this idea of layers, digging beyond the layers of what's on the surface and really what is underneath. And so ultimately with self-love, sometimes you have to let go of those surface things that feel great for the deeper emotion, the deeper reality that is below the layers. And so for me, spread love, recognizing this was the moment that I was with Tyrone, that I needed to let go and to liberate myself. Spread love. It was only in that moment of letting you go that I learned the way to spread love is to live free. You embody all that is love. You promote it in the way you move. Your swagger speaks of love. Love is in the warmth of your eyes, the beauty of your smile. You carry love in the movement of your hands. Even the clothes you wear speak of love. I hear it, just as my heart did when we first met. My heart heard and listened. Love, I am still listening. So it's a very open-ended poem for each of us to consider. How do we spread love? Can we start spreading it with ourselves? And once we know what that is like, then we can spread to others. And I did find Just Us on 152. Okay. And this, I wanted to say, I was thinking earlier, Brother Chris Emden, who is my wonderful colleague at Teachers College, he read Love from the Vortex, and he really, expanded my mind. He said, I read this as a story of unrequited love for BIPOC children, children of color, and schools.
Yes.
Parents, communities, we send our children to the schools, believing the schools will do right by them, believing all of these things, right? And sometimes it's really brokenheartedness that we end up with. It is unrequited love. It is, we believe in the system, we love parts of the system and what it can offer, and yet it does not manifest in the way that we need it in our lives. And so I just want to give a nod publicly to Dr. Chris Emden, who made me think about my own work in a very different way. So Just Us. Here is my invitation for you to bend towards justice. My arc of self bends in favor of love. Asking hard questions and waiting for answers that don't offer conclusions, just more wonderings about how to live a life worthy of the children who come after us. So I want to be a good ancestor who is using her time that is worthy of the children, not only the ones coming after me that I will never meet, but the ones who are here. And this Fanshen for me is what your mantra of truth, justice, and love does, that it takes us beyond ourselves. We think quite naturally what our ancestors, all of our ancestors gave up for us to be here in this moment. And we purposely have our eye on the future. So for me, it is the ultimate connection, your mantra, of the past, of the present, and the future.
I am speechless in gratitude for you to say that, because there's no question, there never has been any question since I had the great fortune of being an educator for a long time, that this is education's work. And you, in being an educator, not just to young folks and folks of all ages, but also to future educators. Honestly, sometimes it helps me reflect on what the work really needs to do in media and entertainment to support you all, because because you are there doing the work every day and modeling this every day. So I thank you for that, and I am humbled and reminding myself that what I do is all about supporting what you do, Yolanda and Teachers College. So yeah.
I'm just gonna jump in here. Sorry, I joined this.
Hi, Rosella. Welcome back.
And I realized I was so eager to let you two talk because it's magic that I just ran right through the intro and disappeared and left it to you, but I knew it would be magic. And I meant it when I said you're two of my favorite people, because you approach these discussions that are not easy to have. And it's always in such a beautiful, loving way. And it fills me, like I had chills so many times during this conversation. And I just thank you both for laying your souls out, bare for us to see, with nothing but love and light. And I think it's a really beautiful way to learn. And so I'm always appreciative when we bring you two together, and you're just pros. And Yolanda, thank you for sharing your work. And
Thank you.
thank you for, keeping this moving in Hollywood, helping us to tell stories and bring that, so that it is mainstream. It is something that people can feel and see every day. So we will jump to a few questions, because we definitely have a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So I'm going to just ask you each to respond. Feel free to sort of take them as you like. So the first question we have is kind of going back to your place of work, and sort of how do you react and respond when you're sort of on the receiving end of microaggressions, or even seeing them play out in your workplace?
I can speak to that, because certainly we know Teachers College, like all institutions, what's baked in this history of our country of 400 years of inequality, that it manifests within institutions, deeply embedded in racism and classism and sexism, homophobia. And so even when people aren't intending to do so, when we're in these kinds of institutions, we take on these behaviors. And so certainly I am not unique, particularly as a Black female faculty member, that I've not experienced microaggressions and racism from colleagues, from students, and so forth. That's part of the work. I think because of the self-work that I do and continue to do, and that I do this, as you would say, for a living, and I deeply believe in humanity, that it gives me a level of patience. And I think about my sister friend, Dr. Lalitha Vasudevan, that talks about patient urgency. So although I'm patient, I'm at the same time understanding the urgent need and the urgent nature for people to shift their heart and shift their actions because of what's happening in schools. When children are literally dying and metaphorically dying, it's important that the individual do that self-work so they can learn how to stop harm. They can learn how to stop enacting violent curriculum. And so how do I deal with it? I operate in truth. I operate in inquiry. I ask a lot of questions. Tell me more about that. How did you come to understand that? Is there another perspective? So it depends on the relationship. Sometimes I'm talking to 1,000 people at a time. Sometimes it's 15 people. So context matters as well. But thank you for that question. A very powerful and important one.
I couldn't agree more, as I hope to be a role model for it, and I'm not always. So because of the urgency of the moment, or because of feeling, excuse me, that I'm the only one in the room, or, or feeling attacked, which it often is. It is often violent to experience racism and sexism. I don't always respond in a way that is potentially effective for the thing I'm trying to kind of get done. Let's say a project that I'd like to, get out into the world. But it is sometimes important and effective for my self-care to respond in that way. It is to honor that first reaction that I have and let it out. That's and right. Let that person see it and not protect their feelings, because that is part of what has perpetuated this system, is in my protection of those feelings.
Right.
To Yolanda's point about context, obviously, in relationship with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, this is a 40+ year relationship. We grew up together. We grew up in very progressive, well, I think what we pat ourselves on the back and all progressive spaces, and they were not.
That's right.
And so kind of constantly, so there I have a relationship in which I am okay with letting it fully out, and we hash it out, and we get, we can tend to get back to a place that's productive is not the right word. It was productive because I needed to get it out,
That's
but
right.
productive in terms of let's say the project that we are hoping to kind of help birth into the world. Then there are other times where, Hollywood is all about power dynamics. It's all about hierarchies. And we know how dangerous those are. We know that that is what built, racist systems are hierarchies. And Hollywood, the response is often, well, this is just how it's done. And, it's like, well, that's why it's a problem. That's why we need to change
That's why
it
it needs to be interrupted.
So, yeah, you've just admitted why we are in the position we're in. So that often then, then it's a more strategic response. It's a, hey, let me send you, have you ever heard about the Ozawa and Thind cases of in the 1920s? Maybe, understanding what whiteness is and how it was invented and manipulated,
Right.
so you kind of, I fortunate do that educator piece where I'm like, let me come about this from this angle. So yeah, that's how I try to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Place of love, I think, and truth, right?
And truth, yes.
Truth first. So our next question is someone asking, how can I best provide the windows in a white space to spark conversations that build co-conspirators?
Thank you for bringing in the language of co-conspirator. Oftentimes people have problems with that language. And if you look at the root word, and someone did this for me in a session I was in the other day, it said, if you look at the root word of co-conspirator, co-conspire, it means to breathe together. So isn't that something? So what if we looked at this work around justice, around truth, around anti-racism as a way of breathing together? And so to answer the first part of the question, you have to do that self-work yourself, because I think what I want to move away from, quite frankly, in the sessions that I do with teachers is telling them how to do it. That doesn't really work, right? That becomes the formulaic, okay, do this, take this binder, and that only lasts for a moment. So this is why I approach it with this idea of archaeology of self, of doing the deep work of finding out what actually blocks you. First of all, what are your beliefs around making space? What blocks you from making space? What encourages, like you have to do all of that deep work. And then naturally it's going to impact your pedagogy, the way you move in the world. That's that self-work that has to happen. Now, of course, we can read books and go through sessions to sharpen our skills, because racial literacy is a skill, it's a practice, it's an action, but no one can really answer that question for you. And I think what I want to do when I engage with folks is have us even think about the questions that we're asking. Are we really starting in a deep space of truth with ourselves? Or are we actually asking the question because we want an answer that we can go ahead and do it and then move on? So all of this requires that deep work. So I want to thank you for that question and questions like it, and then ask us to pause for a moment to say, have I done the deep self-work first? And if I do, and when I do, how do my questions change?
Enough said.
It's arc of self. I'm telling you, it's the gift that keeps giving. It's the gift that keeps giving, to locate the self in this work and to not be paralyzed by what you find, but to then find your people, find your communities, and move towards action. It is the way. It's what you've done. That's the manifestation of Sister Brunch. That's, the work that you're doing with the inclusion, the writer inclusion, where you're bringing in the folks who are most effective, but you've done that self-work first. And in some ways, you've done an archaeology of the writer inclusion statement. Doing that archaeology, you then realize what's missing.
I was really thinking about this in the context of Sister Brunch, and I want to uplift the names of Christabel and Siabwadi and Brittany Turner and Anya Adams, who are the women that I do this with. And and so Anya's the co-host, Brittany and Christabel are the producers who really make it happen. And I was really thinking about this in that context, because in a lot of cases, these are the first times that these Black women plus are sharing their own narratives, because Hollywood is so much about somebody else's, right? And then you're working in service of someone else's story all the time. And so this is that first opportunity for them to share theirs. And I was going to ask you, Yolanda, what does it look like to do that self-work? And then I thought, I get to see that on Sister Brunch because I'm watching these sisters do that by sharing their stories and by being encouraged and supported in telling their truths. And so that's a place to start, is what is your story? And find places and people who support you telling those full truths about yourself. So,
and if you can't find them, then do as you did, you create them.
yes.
And you create both safe and brave spaces, which is what I seek to do in my classroom, because it's not safe for everyone all the time. But if the spaces can be brave, then we can push through and we can, manifest the things that we wish to manifest. So yeah, it's creating those spaces so that people can, and that's another thing I've learned, that as much as Archaeology of the Self is about the internal work, and to answer your question, through therapy, through meditation, through prayer, I also have recognized that it has to be done in community, because you eventually need to share what you're thinking, how you feel you're growing, with the folks that you are actually trying to shift your thinking about. And so you might think you've reached a level of wokeness. Here I am.
You're in your silo and you're like, oh, but then.
So co-construction is important. It just goes back that we need each other even as we do the self-work. Arc of self also has to be done in community.
Yeah. It's really powerful. And we've definitely seen a lot of love and praise coming forth about, people emphasizing or thanking you for emphasizing the importance of words and language, the importance of giving youth access and platforms so that they can speak their truth, right? And also the comment on, lauding your creativity skills, the two of you, and wondering what advice you might have on someone being able to tap into their creativity. So we talked about maybe creating those spaces, but how do you actually tap your creativity?
Wow. I'll go really quickly. I actually want to give a nod, and I want to thank TC, and specifically I want to thank Jim Gardner and our new president, Tom Bailey. And I say that because Tom was chosen to be the new president, and Jim Gardner, as the public relations person, came to me a couple of weeks out and asked me to write an inauguration poem. And I want to tell you that although I've been writing poetry for 35 years, and it wasn't that I needed the sanctioning or the acceptance or affirmation, but what TC did for me in asking me to do that, it allowed me for the first time in 2018 to call myself a poet. I had not identified as a poet. I was just someone who wrote poetry to free myself, to understand myself. And so again, that co-construction, and in this case, it was the service of Jim Gardner. So how you tap into the creativity, first you have to believe that you're creative, and we are all creative in multiple ways. There's a particular creativity that might rise each time, and that then you might claim yourself to say, oh, my creativity is coming through visual, I'm going to call myself an artist. Or through song, I'm going to call myself a songwriter. So first, to do that arc of self, what are your creative moments and spaces? How does it manifest? And then just be free to let it flow and let it open. Like I said, arc of self, I mean, Love from the Vortex didn't intend to write a book. The book wrote itself, in part because I was in tune with what poetry did for me. It freed me. So what does your art and your creativity do for you?
And I'll just say and add on to that you are the non-dominant narrative. We have not heard your story. You are the story that we are looking for. You are the story that we are saying we have not heard enough of. You are the non-dominant narrative. Find all the ways that make you feel good that you tell your story. It could be through photography, it could be through music, it could be through you sitting in Central Park. I'll say that for the New Yorkers, or in your yard if you're lucky to have one, just your story is the story that we need. And so please gift us that. We are looking for you, and we want to hear it. We want to share it.
And do it. Last thing I'll say is do it in truth, because one thing about the Love from the Vortex, it is extremely vulnerable. But I cannot tell you how many people have emailed, texted, and voice messaged me that said thank you, particularly in the time of COVID-19, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, but we know we've been living under for a year, and said how it has offered me solace. And I also want to say in this plug that the book is published by a doctoral student and by women of color, a team of women of color, that we do this as our side jobs. So this is not like a large conglomerate publishing place. This is us. And this is through illustration and book design and poetry and editing and publishing, how we've chosen to tell a story. But they also, that team, it's part of their story as well, Love from the Vortex, because that was co-constructed through their art, through their editing, through their book design. And so, yes, that's all I wanted to say. Tell our stories.
Yes.
Tell our stories.
Truth in pursuit of justice. And that is love.
That is love.
Showing love every time you tell your story with truth. So that's it.
I think this has been inspiring for so many, and we're just, I mean, I think every time, this is now the second time we've had you together in conversation, and every time it's just, we want more. The comments are just so positive. They're so inspiring. They're so inspired, as am I. And I'm ever grateful to the two of you for bringing your wonderful energy. It always makes me feel good. Like, this is free therapy. So for those of you watching, this will be recorded and archived. So come back when you need to pick me up, because I think it's a good reminder, and it's a great way for us to stay true to ourselves, to dig deep, and to share that love and share those stories with others. Because I think, there's always someone listening that can certainly relate. And as you say, Yolanda, will feel gratitude, will feel like they're not alone in this, which, we could all use that right now in this day and age. So with my extreme gratitude, thank you both for being our wonderful alumni speakers today. We're ever grateful to you both. And for those of you watching, please stay tuned to emails and our social media for details on future events, including our next webinar, the 10 Commandments for Organizing Your Home, a virtual event with an alumna and professional organizer, Jocelyn Kenner. So until then, thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
Bye, Rosella. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, alums.